All right, welcome back everybody. My name is Dustin. It's been a while since I made a video for the engine, but today we're going to get back into it. And today we're going to be making some changes on how we actually do selections for the tiles for the Tileset display. Here, I'll give you a little example. All right, so if we have a project, I have this little test project here. And if we go to our assets and let's create another scene, and we'll just say new scene. I know if you guys are waiting on the ISO stuff, that's coming soon. It's not fully done, the videos for that. There's a lot of stuff I still have to try to do to explain, get that going. But it's coming soon, don't worry. Okay, so we'll just create a new scene. And let's load this new scene in. All right. Do we have any tile sets here? And we do. Oh, these are all ISO tiles. But that's okay. So the whole point of this is what we want to be able to do. Okay, I want to be able to click and drag, and that's the tiles that I want to be creating. So whatever we grab like this, that's what I want to do. So if we add a new layer and see, you see that's the tile that is made. And if we go back here, if I change it to this one, and that's the goal for this video, is to be able to make these tiles like this. Where before we could only select one at a time, you can still do that and it'll change. But we want the widths to automatically change for you, right? So if I select these, I want everything to change. If we go back to our tile details, and you see that it changed here. So that's the goal for this video, so let's get into it. Okay, first thing we're gonna have to do is change some things here. And we're gonna have to add a new struct that's going to allow us to select multiple tiles at once. So we need to create something that will help us do that. So I want to go struct, and it's going to be table selection. So what we're going to need here is we're going to need basically we're making a square. We're going to have the start position and the end position, or square or a rectangle. So we need to have the start row and the end row. So let's do that now. So we'll go int start row. Everything is going to start as -1 for now. Then we're going to have start column, or start call, end row, end column, end row, end call. We're going to want to have a flag that if we're selecting, so be selecting, that's going to be false. And we're going to want to have a couple functions here. And we're going to say bool is valid. So is it a valid tile? And that'll be return start row not equal to -1, and start call is not equal to -1. All right. And we're also going to want to have another function so we can reset everything back to default values. So we're going to say void reset. That's going to be start row is equal to start call, which is equal to end row, which is equal to end call, which is equal to -1. And then we're going to want to say be selecting is equal to false. Now we're making this struct private because we don't need to see it outside of the Tileset display. If there's ever a chance where we're going to need it outside, we'll bring it outside. But this is going to be all in the Tileset display. I'm just using a struct to make it a bit cleaner and easier to do. Okay, so let's say table selection, and that's going to be m selection. And we can actually get rid of this m selected because we're not going to need it anymore. And let's go to the CPP file. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is actually go down to the draw function. And we're going to have to make a lot of changes here. So first, let's create a couple of flags so we know if the left mouse button is currently being held down or if it's released. So we'll say I am GUI IO. Reference IO equal to I am GUI get IO. And we're going to say bool be mouse held to I am GUI is mouse down. And we can send in I am GUI mouse button left. And we're going to copy this down and we're going to change this to released. Okay, so is mouse released. Change this to mouse released. Awesome. So right now we're just having it automatically being divided by 16. Well, we don't want that. We're going to actually create some variables here for the tile width and the tile height. Those will just be int tile width, and that's just going to be 16. I know that's what we're using already, but it's going to be 16 and 16 for tile height. Eventually, I'm going to want to set these from the canvas size, but right now we'll just default them to 16 rather than having these just 16 values here. This will remind me that we have to do this from the canvas, so we can actually say that to do get the tile sizes from the canvas, from the scenes canvas. Cool. All right, so we have our texture width and texture height. So right now, what I'm going to want to do is cast these to floats, because down the line, we're going to have to use them as floats there. So we might as well do the cast once rather than doing it a bunch of times. We can say float, and that's going to be static cast float. Awesome. And we can change our calls here to be tile width, tile height. Let's change these to const, because it's never going to have to change. And we'll capitalize these. Calls, rows, just making it a bit cleaner. Okay, so now all this UX and VX stuff, UVX, UVY, we're going to get rid of all of this. We're not going to use this at all. We're going to change how we're doing it. Let's get rid of that. The table flags can stay. IDs can stay. We're going to need those. And we can change this to our calls. Change this to rows. Change this to calls. All right. We don't have M selected anymore. It's equal to ID. We're not going to need one of these anymore. So we can either keep K or ID. Let's keep ID and get rid of K. I'm just going to comment this out because the way that I'm currently doing the highlighting, we might change to use something like this. But let's just see. Comment that out. And we're not going to be using K here anymore. We're going to be using the ID. We're going to have to change how we're calculating the ID. But before we do that, let's change all this stuff up here. Say row, copy this, row, row. Everywhere that has I, let's go change it to row. We may remove this as well, actually. We'll get to that. So that's fine. And we'll just change this to call. We want it to be cleaner. Because so now anyone that looks at this will see call and row, and they'll kind of get the idea of what we're trying to do. And change this to call. All right. So let's change how we are calculating the ID. So we're going to say ID is equal to row times the number of calls plus call. So what this is going to do is give us the particular cell value that we're in right now. And then we can just set the ID. We don't have to do plus plus because we're already getting it. Cool. And we change this to ID. All right. So let's actually get rid of everything here. Get rid of this. Get rid of all this. Cool. And keep the pop ID. And we'll get rid of all of this. And let's fill all this in. All right. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is get the UV coordinates for this particular cell. So we'll say get UV coordinates for this cell. So we're going to have float U0 equal to call times tile width divided by texture width. And we can copy these all down and just make the changes accordingly. So this one's going to be texture height, tile height. This will be row. And this is V0. And we're going to have U1. That's going to be a little bit different. That's going to be call plus 1 times tile width divided by texture width. And then this one is going to be height, texture height. And this can be row plus 1. Change this to V1. Awesome. That's going to give us our UV coordinates for this particular cell. Okay. Now we're going to have to create a cell min and cell max. This is going to be used so IMGUI knows what cell rect that we're currently hovering over. So I can go IMVec2 cell min equal to IMGUI get cursor screen pause. And to calculate the max, we need the min value that we just grabbed plus the tile width and tile height. Okay, so we go IMVec2 cell max equal to cell min dot x plus tile width cell min dot y plus tile height. So now what we're going to want to do is check to see if our mouse button is held down. If it is held down, we need to check to see if we're hovering the current cell. And if we are, we want to set that as our new end row or end column. Okay, so we say if B mouse held and IMGUI is mouse hovering rect, and we can say cell min, cell max. We're also going to want to check to see if the table selection is valid and that we're selecting. So we want to go and M selection dot is valid and M selection dot be selecting. Now we're going to handle where that start happens down below, but we want to make sure that we're doing that check first. And if that's true, we want to set our end row to the current row and the end call to the current call. So we want to say M selection dot end row equal to this row. Copy this down and change the call end call. Cool. Since we're checking here if the mouse is held, now we want to check to see if the mouse is released. So else, change this else if B mouse released. All we're going to want to do here is reset the selecting. So we want to say M selection dot be selecting is equal to false. So we're not currently selecting anything. We don't want to reset everything here because when we drag, as soon as we release, that's going to be the size of our cell. So now that we're here, we need to ensure that the selected rows and columns always maintain a rectangular shape. Okay, so we want to go bool be selected false. And we're going to say if M selection dot is valid. So we have a valid selection. Now I want to get the min and max of the two. So I want to go int min row equal to std min M selection dot start and M selection dot end. That'll give us the min row. Now, we're not always going to be going in one direction. We may go up to the left. We may go down to the right. So your start row and end row, one might be higher than the other. It depends on the direction that you're dragging. And we're going to want to do the same thing for max row and max column. So we can just copy this down and just change this to max. Change this to max. So we can copy both of these. Paste. I think we can just highlight this all. Control H and replace row with all. Alt A. Cool. Handled it for us. So in order to determine if the button is actually selected, we need to ensure that the current row and column are within the min and max. So we go be selected, because this is what we need for highlighting the actual value, is equal to row greater than equal to min row, and row is less than or equal to max row, and all is greater than equal to all is less than or equal to max call. Then we'll know that the particular cell that we're looking at should be highlighted or not. And while we're in here, we're going to need to have to generate our UVs. However, we're going to have to change how this is done. So we'll come back to this later. But at least thing we can do is check to see if we have an active tool and that the mouse button is held. So if auto active tool equal to tool here, get active tool. And then we can say be mouse held. And we'll come back to this shortly. Now we're going to need a way to indicate visually that the table cells have been selected for drawing. So we have two color properties for each cell that we can set, the tint and the border. So let's actually do that now. Let's go IM vec4, and I'm going to say tint color equal to be selected. If it's selected, IM vec4. I'm going to go 0.3F. 0.6F. You can make this whatever color you guys want. 0.1, 0.1. Or we're just going to make it white. IM vec. Or 1.f, 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 1.f. And let's copy this down because we're going to want another one for the border color. Let's change this to border color. And I'm going to change this. It's going to be the opposite. If it's 1.f, 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 1.f. So if it's selected, it's going to be white. If it's not selected, it's going to be transparent. So let's change everything to 0. Transparent and black. Cool. All right. Now we need to do the button, the image button. But instead of using the regular IMGUI image button, we're going to change this to the IMGUI image button EX, or extended. I think it stands for extended. To use that, we need to include IMGUI internal. Okay, so let's go up to the top. Here where IMGUI is, go include IMGUI internal. And we'll go back down. And I want to do if IMGUI image button EX. Okay, this one works a little bit differently. We need to get the ID. So IMGUI get ID. And the ID is going to be FMT format image button. We're going to send in the ID, and that's going to be a C string. Cool. And now we got to do the same thing we did before. So let's this. So we got our ID. Then we need to do the texture ID. So we go IM texture ID. Int pointer P of the P texture get ID. Awesome. So now we need to do the image size, and that's just going to be the tile width and tile height. So here I'm going to go IM vec2 static cast float tile width static cast float tile height. Cool. And we want to do our UVs. So UV0 and UV1. And that's IM vec2 U0 V0. Copy this down. U1 V1. Send in our border color. Send in our tint color. And we actually do have one flag that we need to use here. Usually, the buttons work on release. So once you press the button and when you release it, that's when it actually goes into this if statement here. That's when it returns true. However, I want this button to be activated as soon as it's pressed. That's when I'm going to want to set our values. We're going to want to set the initial values on press and then set the min and max upon release. So everything is set on in that way. It's not on the other way around. Okay. So for that flag, I need IamGUI button flags rest on click. Cool. And control KD, clean that up a little bit. All right. Now this is where I'm going to want to do my reset. So I want to go M selection dot set. So anything that was selected previously, I have now clicked again. And so I want to reset the original selection and start the selection over. Then I want to say M selection dot start row is equal to M selection dot end row, which is equal to the current row right now. I want to do the same thing for column. Change these to all column. Call. And I want to set my selection to true. So I am selection dot be selecting is true. Awesome. All right. We still have to do this, but let's see if what we've got so far is working and it's highlighting the tiles the way that we want them to. So let's run this and see if we have any errors. All right, we got no errors. So let's actually create a new project for this. So we create a new project and we'll just call it test proj. And it can just be right there. Doesn't matter. Create. Cool. So I'm going to want to go to my assets, create a new scene, add scene. So you see this one doesn't have the grid or anything or the ISO map because this is still the other one's a work in progress. This is where we're at right now. Okay, so we'll just say test. Cool. So it makes that. And we'll drag this in. And we're going to need some textures. We don't have any textures yet, so let's go to our content browser. Assets, textures, and we can create a new folder. Here, we can say tile sets. Cool. Let's go into the tile sets folder. And I already have some textures from a previous, so we can just drag that in. So that if we got these hill tiles, now we have to go and make sure that we have our textures here, add a new texture, browse. Here, content, assets, textures, tile set. Open, and it's going to be pixel art and a tile set. Okay, cool. Now we can save this. Cool. So we have our tiles. Let's go to our tile set, choose the tile set and drag. Awesome. Look at that. It's doing what I wanted it to do. So it's highlighting them. Now it is giving it that tint and that highlight, but I'm wondering if we can use the background, set the cell to the background color that we commented out before. Here, grab this stuff. So we'll have the tint, but we'll also go this, uncomment this, control KU. Change that to from selected to deselect. See if that works. Run it. And we're going to open the project that we just created. This project should run. Cool. Our scenes. Load the scene. And choose the tile set. Awesome. So that looks good. Kind of looks weird. You don't have to do this one if you don't want to with the cell highlighted like that. Or you can change the color to whatever color you want. Now, it's not going to work yet. So if we go add layer, it's only going to show the one. Even I assume it's only, yeah. So, see, it's only going to show the one because we have to set the UV still to the one that we want to use. Okay, and we're not currently doing that. So, okay, so we're doing that in here. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is actually get the tile data so we can adjust the sprite's width and height based on the tile or cell selections that we have here. Auto reference tile data is equal to p active tool get tile data. Cool. And then I want to set the sprite width and sprite height. Now we have to base the sizes on the min and max rows and columns that we selected. However, we want to be able to select them from all directions. So if you start on the right and move over to the left, this is going to end up with a negative value. So to remedy this, we want to take the absolute value of the difference between the max value and the min value, and then add 1. So we go tile data dot sprite dot width equal to std abs max call minus min call plus 1. And then we need to multiply this by the tile width times tile width. And copy this down and do the same thing for height. Tile height, this will be max row and min row. And change this to height. Cool. So now that we have that, we need to change how we generate the UVs because we're not setting the start X and start Y anymore. We want to change because the start X and start Y. So say we pick on the right again and pull to the left. Well, that's not going to be the start X and start Y. It's going to be a different position. So let's go into where we create our generate UVs in the core. Let's go here, core utilities, and core utilities here. And we have our generate UVs function. Copy the signature, paste it in, and we're going to call this generate UVs, and I'm going to call it EX or EXT, extended. And I'm going to want to add 2 floats, float U and float V. So for this one, we're going to directly set the UV values rather than having it generated in here. We're going to generate it outside and just set them here basically. So we still want this here for our width and height. However, our UVs, we can copy this, are just going to be set to the U and the V values that we send in. Okay. V. So we take this, generate UVs extended, we can copy this, and let's go back into our Tileset display, and we're going to want to go Scion 4 and generate UVs. It doesn't look like we have that included, so let's go back up to the top. Nope, I don't see it included, so include for utilities. Awesome. Go back down to the bottom, right about here. And we're going to go tile data dot sprite and texture width, texture height. And now we want to generate the UVs. And the UV here, I want to go min call times tile width divided by texture width. And we want to do the same thing for the V. So that was for the U. So that's why we want to do it in here, because I need the minimum call based on the start call, end call, min selection here, because we need to know what direction we move in. So if we move from right to left or left to right, this value is going to change. Okay. So we can copy all of this and do the same thing for the row or for the V value. Paste, get rid of that. Right. Change this to height. Change this to row. Row KD. All right. I think we're done. So if you don't want to use this color or change your colors to something lighter, that's up to you. Okay. I might even make this a bit more transparent. See how that looks. And let's run it. Okay, so we have some errors. Let's see what it is. So it doesn't know what that is. So we have to make sure that it have that in. Let's go see what we got. Look at that error again. Oh, editor utilities. All right. So let's go back here. Make sure that we have that. include editor use. And that should work for us. Okay, so let's run this and see if we can place the correct tiles. So we're using the rectile tool. Sure, that should work. Assets, let's load our scene. Scene editor, good, for the tile map editor, sorry. And let's go to our tile set, choose the tiles, and select. And we have to have a layer, because we didn't save that layer. Look at that, bang. So it's allowing us to select them. And we can change the size. Let's get this tree. And that's all we have to do now. We don't have to change any values. It automatically changes it here for us to whatever we select it to. Say we want this whole fence here. We can just drag that in. And we want this water. Or you want the whole thing. You just drag it all and bring it in. All right, guys. So that's it for this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or concerns, please drop a comment below. We also have a Discord, a small Discord where we're talking about simple things, or that's where I post when my next video is going to be posted. You can check that out there. Also, I did start a little C++ topics playlist that we're going to be going through. There's only 3 videos right now, but I'm going to try to drop at least 1 a week. I dropped 3 this weekend because I had extra time, so I'm going to see what I can do. Now, if you're waiting on the ISO stuff, we already have a branch for that. So if you just go to the GitHub repo and go to the feature request ISO tiles, that's basically already implemented in here. And that I haven't done the videos for it yet, but I've already done most of the code and I've already pushed it, so you guys can go check it out if you like. Actually, this tile set stuff's already done in here as well. I just wanted to create an engine video for everybody. All the ISO stuff is already done. Just have to figure out where it all is. And the best way to do that would be to check the commits. And we got... So we also have a crash logger that I created recently. That's all on this branch. It hasn't been pushed to the main branch yet. And lots of different things going on here. Yeah, so the commit you would want to look for is the massive initial commit, because I did a lot of stuff in the background. And we added a lot of things here. We added a player start and a character. Well, the character was already in there. We started prefabs. We started a save project, scene manager, or we've made changes so like where the scenes and the scene manager are. This is all moved to the core rather than being in the editor. If you look up here, so we moved scenes and scene manager to the core lib, created the editor scene manager, started concept for the player start, started the concept for prefabbed entities. We also added the ISO functionality for the grid system, for the sprites and render batches. All this stuff has been added onto this branch. So if you want to move ahead and try to check it out on your own, check out this commit or check out this branch. That's the one that you're going to want to check out. I'm going to eventually get those videos out, but hey, check this out in the meantime. All right, that's it. Take it easy.